Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 7 of the anime series Blade and Soul. And this was definitely an intriguing episode, if not completely crazy, as we're following on with Aruka's travels, which bring her to this hilltop seaside village called the Boat of Cleansing. Now, we're basically reintroduced to a character going all the way back to the first episode of the series, the village leader, daughter Mori, who has really undergone a complete brainwashing by this religious cult sect, or whatever you want to call it, that exists within this Boat of Cleansing. When they first meet each other on the beach, essentially Mori attacks her by throwing a dagger at her and everything, and of course Aruka replies in kind, but then she basically begs for her to come to the Boat of Cleansing, this little village, and be purified and all this kind of stuff, almost as though she wants to thank Aruka for all of the events that happened as they transpired in that first episode. But of course, there's a lot more going on. With all of the characters we're introduced to in this town, there's something off with each of them. The sort of mother character, the den mother, if you will, who's overseeing this all, she immediately doesn't like the idea of, Aruka being brought here. There's a couple other people who are very afraid of her being brought there. And they talk about having their very first ritual, and as soon as I heard that phraseology, I was like, wow, this doesn't sound too good. So essentially, while Aruka's being shown around and they're having their little group meeting, Lon the Wanderer actually shows back up. He comes selling some of his wares and his goods and everything. He notices that Aruka is there, and they tell him, oh, she's going to be a special guest and all that kind of stuff. As he leaves, not having made that much money at all, he says to himself, I really know too much for my own good about what's actually going to go on there. And again, suggestive themes that something ominous and nefarious is going to actually unfold, much to my suspicion, which is later confirmed when essentially they have Aruka, sort of backed against a wall in this little room. They start ringing this bell, and there's this great loud noise that knocks you out and makes you, in Aruka's case, fall down screaming, trying to drive into your mind with this psychosis, this, basically manipulation of your will and everything like that. And we actually have a callback to, of course, Karen L. and her establishment. She's been given information that they know where Aruka is. When she's told this is where she is, the Boat of Cleansing, she even says this is really not the best place for her to be. So essentially we find that Aruka's to be sacrificed, to have her chained a la, Fay Ray in the original King Kong, as a sacrifice, a lamb to the slaughter. And this Mori girl is supposed to be the one who takes the first stab. She's supposed to remove her heart, and everybody, I guess, is packing a blade of some type. They're going to be purified, according to this den mother, this, cult leader, by the tainted blood that she will be bleeding out. And at this point, we see, as sort of a cavalry coming to save Aruka, all of these flaming arrows being shot from the outside of the village to bewilder and add dismay to the entirety of this particular cult. And Aruka just barely gets away. I mean, her energy is drained from this dampening sound that debilitated her and everything like that. She's got Mori on her heels, and it's very cool and funny that we see she runs into Lon the Wanderer, waiting for her on the beachhead, asking for some kind of recompense for his being her savior and all this stuff. But Mori, as I say, is right on her heels, and a brutal attack just unfolds with Mori almost taking Aruka down because of her debilitated state. But this is all interrupted by Karen L., who shows up, once again being this protective benefactor of characters like Aruka and Hazuki and such like that. And she basically tries to get it through this Mori girl's head that taking vengeance is silly. You're not going to feel better for it. I mean, what's it going to take for her to learn this lesson? Somebody pop in Batman Begins for this chick. But in any case, you see them leave this Mori girl screaming, stabbing at the sand of the beach. She's been completely just psychologically broken from the loss of her village, from all the lives she couldn't protect and everything. And she thought, in essence, because Aruka told her at the end of that first episode to take vengeance, she kind of got it instilled in her by this Boat of Cleansing village and the people therein, that the vengeance she would have to take out was not on the people who were really guilty of the wrongdoings, the Param Empire, but Aruka herself. And so it was very interesting that it all culminated to this point. Of course, once Karen gets Aruka off to the side, she actually asks her a question which relates all the way back back to the revelation a couple episodes back to do with one of her very first assassin missions. She assassinates somebody under the order of her master Han, and apparently this is somebody Karen knows, and it seems as though the confirmation is a personal one. Maybe this was somebody she was in love with, maybe this was her husband or her boyfriend or her fiance, whatever it is. Maybe it was her brother. We're not exactly sure, but we know there's a recognition there when Annika admits, yes, I was the one who took this person's life. And so that begs the question for me, what the relationship is between Karen and whoever this person was. For all we know, this could be, something that happened that saved Karen from hardship. Maybe that's why she owns the establishment she does now. She was being overlorded by somebody and, inadvertently was saved by Annika's doing, or perhaps this is something she is personally seeking vengeance for, and this will, basically open a battlefield in the future for Karen to go against Annika. I don't know, but it's very fascinating, added depth to this overall series. And of course, we also catch up with the Pleasure Gang. They have their new members, and Luanodon is trying to get them prepared for this fight against the Param Empire, and especially Feral Jin. And they don't have any idea who Feral Jin is, what the evils she has been up to is, and all that stuff, what that all amounts to. And Hazuki is just getting fed up with their incompetence. She's, going to the point of threatening them, pulling out her weapons, and shooting their weapons out of their hands when they try to retaliate, to prove the point that they are just not ready for any sort of battle or anything like that. And it's a pretty solid point that, because if Hazuki can take them down that easily, they have no hope going against the Param Empire. So hopefully this has made a more positive impression on the Luanodon, that these guys are really going to need some uber training and some time to really get their bearings and everything like that. And it's just a very interesting turn of events for all of these characters, hopefully leading to the next leg in the confrontations between Annika, all these other characters in the Param Empire, and against Feral Jin. And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, of course. And otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. I enjoyed the hell out of this episode, as usual. One of my favorite series in this wave. And yeah, I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.